Welcome to Couple Crush. In this video, I'll put you through what I did to obtain this beautiful corset over here, the shoulder corset as you have seen in the picture. The first thing I did was to draw my shoulder line. Then from the shoulder line, I placed all the measurements, that is my under bust, my bust line, and my half length. So I repeated that on 2 points so as to get an accurate straight lines. So after placing them, I drew out the lines, connecting it to form my bust line, my under bust, and my half length. Then from the bust line, I marked out my apex, that is 4 inches, as nipple, half of nipple to nipple, since the pattern will be used on fold. So I also marked out my shoulder line plus half an inch for seam allowance, and I marked that out on 2 points. Then I marked out my armhole. Then I took away half of an inch for the shoulder slants, then marking 3 inches for the neck line. Then I also connected those points together to form my armhole, my shoulder, my new shoulder line that is slanted, and my neck width. Then I marked out from the armhole line there, I marked out 1.5 inches. Then I slanted it from the shoulder to the 0.5 inches because this corset is going to be pleated or gathered, so as such I needed to extend it. Then I also marked out half of an inch at the from the center point. Then that will be the space that I'll keep between my bust or between the two cups. Then I connected the neck line to the 2 inches that I kept. If you wish, you can leave it at 1 inch, but I didn't want it to expose the bust so much. Then the next thing I did was to take my bust measurements, as a quarter of the bust measurements. Then I marked it out. Then I added my seam allowance. I did the same thing on the shoulder line, the armhole line. Then after that, I connected the armhole curve using my curve ruler. If you look at it carefully, you notice that I connected it on the new slanted line that I had on the armhole. Then the next thing was to tighten the bust, the under bust, by taking the dart of 2.5 inches depending on my bust size. So I did the same thing for the half length, and I connected the lines as seen. Then the next thing is to curve it out from the under bust to the half inch that I left to form my cup. This is really simple. If you have maybe cut a corset, you know what I mean. Then for the other side, you may choose to connect it to the bust points. You may choose to connect it to the armhole. You may choose to connect it a little up to the armhole, but mine, I'm going to take it to the side, that's the side seam between the armhole and the bust line. So I used a dotted line before I introduced the curve ruler so as to get the cup that I needed for the corset design. So I connected it as shown there. Then after that, I had to blend the line to make sure that it is really curvy so as to give a better look on the cup. Then the next thing is to cut it out. I used my scissors and cut out following the slanted shoulder line, armhole line. Then I also cut the slanted shoulder line, and that is the neckline that I'm cutting out. Then I'll cut following the cup shape that I have created. Notice that there is no dart at the upper parts of it because this is going to be a gathered corset. So if you like, you can introduce your cup while sewing it. Then the next thing is to check the under bust measurement and then mark the under bust measurement. As you can see, the 3/4 of it is 8.5 plus the dart allowance and the seam allowance. That is what I marked out there. Then I also mark the same thing on the half length. So after that, I cut it out. Remember that I still had to cut out these darts, but I will also join it before cutting it because I do not really want to create any darts there. So I connected the lines to show where the side seams are. Then I had to cut it out. So putting it together forms the under point. So I had to trace it on a fresh pattern paper. After tracing it on the fresh pattern paper, I put the lines as it were. Then the next thing was to add the seam allowance, and note that the other parts that I cut out, that's the corset parts that I cut out, you also have to add your seam allowance around it when cutting it on the fabric. As I have shown there, you need to add the seam allowance round there. Then the next thing is to do draft out the back, that's the zip allowance. I placed the lines just as I did in the front part of it, my bust line, my under bust, and my half length line. Then I also measured out the apex measurements, that is my nipple to nipple. Then I had to place the dart, and this back dart starts from the chest line, that's the armhole line, down to the waistline. That is a regular back dart. Then everything being done, the next thing is to take the measurements for the back parts. Remember we added 1 inch in the front, so this back part we're going to take away 1 inch so as to make it balanced. The same thing applicable with the under bust. You're going to place the half length. You just place what you have on the half length and add your seam allowance. Then you connect it to the bust point and to the under bust. Don't forget to place the same measurements on the armhole line or the chest line. Then you connect it together. So that forms the back parts of the pattern. Then for the back neckline, you may choose to mark out the deep neck or a flat neck, whatever neck design that you want to use for the back part. There's no problem there. I'm using a normal 1.5 inches deep neckline for the back. Then I cut out the armhole. Remember, the back part, I have not really created any slant line on the armhole because the corset effect is just going to be on the front part, while the back part remains the same. It's going to be normal pattern for the back. Then for the zip bulginess, you may decide to take away half of an inch from the center part of the back. So that is what we have for the pattern, the front and the back. So the next thing is to cut it on the fabric, and here it is. I have cut out the fabric, and you can see how I used the red material, that is doll face satin for the bridal satin for the corset part, and then I used another material for the front part. Then for the back, I cut out the pattern the way it is while closing up the dart allowance and cut it like that. I later changed my mind to make it a straight blouse, not using half length. I made it to become the full length, the full blouse length. So the next thing is to sew it. I cut out the pattern as in the cup parts 2 pieces and the front part 2 pieces. So after joining it, you're going to join it the way I'm showing you there in the video. Just close up the neckline, turn it around, then gather it on the main fabric. Just as you can see, I have closed the neckline and turn it over. Remember that this is just for illustration purpose, so if you are making it for a client, you may likely want to put a lining on the main fabric, that's the bodice. So you can turn it with the lining, likewise with the back. After that, I close the zipper, close the back part of it, and join the neckline, then added a zip on it. So there we go. This is the finished look of it. This is how it is looking like. I know you are enjoying the video already. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. If you want to see how I made the man's wear there, please stay tuned for the next video.